So you thought, 4 episodes in, I might have given up on the bees, right? Right? I can't possibly do even more. I've got to at least stop and do infrastructure or something, right? Right? Yeah, you're right. This is definitely not an episode about bees. Hello everybody, I'm Martin. Welcome to another episode of All the Mods 8, where every episode is about bees, except maybe parts of this one. But first we should go in through and talk about the couple changes they made, because clearly there's some new stuff in here. The main thing was setting up a bunch of iron furnaces here that are powered off of my excess wax, because I have thousands of it, and it has virtually no uses outside of candles or as fuel. So I'm using it to process all of the ores into ingots here, as well as to cook up some bamboo in a botany pot, because I'm using a whole lot of that dried bamboo in my buildings outside over there. So, you know, that makes things a lot easier. I also added a couple more drawers and a couple more materials. We now have redstone and glowstone cooking, as well as nether quartz. So all in all, I actually had a pretty productive week working on this stuff. I also changed the layout of this a little bit and changed the colors because people were making fun of my rainbow eucalyptus, and frankly I didn't think it went very well with the red in the floor here. Changed out the railings on the sides to make them not be a poopy colored dark oak. Probably need to work on the roofs, but I still need to add a second layer here anyways, so the roofs have to get torn off. But we are not doing that today. We are letting it fade tonight because we need to have a very uncomfortable talk about death. And by death, I mean we're going to talk about Crael's Tombstone today, which is one of the odder additions in this pack. Because most people will run into it the very first time they die, which in this pack, from what I've seen, happens very, very quickly, just through random mishaps, if not something intentional. Or, you know, the occasional random scary mob that pops up, because there's some dangerous stuff if you don't have gear that pops up pretty early, like the Wilden mobs from Mars Nouveau. But as I showed way back in the first episode, this is one of the mods that has its own skill tree. And you can either access it via an assigned hotkey or via the command line command TBGUI. And it brings up the perks list, which shows you all the things it can do. And one of the more important things it can do is just straight up stop you from losing XP on death, which, you know, seems kind of important, right? But it does a bunch of other things, like a chance to give you an improved grave key, which will let you teleport straight to your grave, which is of dubious use if, say, you were killed by a warden and your grave is still next to a currently spawned warden. Not the smartest of ideas. And things like extracting enchantments from equipment and putting it onto books, this lets you pull more of them off at a time. But the one I'm most kind of interested in is Necromancer over here, which gives you a chance to become undead somehow. And I don't actually know how this one works, but I'm apparently not evil enough for this. Now, I do want to point out one of the most important parts of the screen, at least when you first come into this, is to hit the configuration screen, because this lets you set up your personalized gravestone, which lets you set colors and text and stuff. This I can't modify, unfortunately, but it does let you change the type of grave that you drop to be, frankly, relatively fancy. But I'm going to go with this more mundane one right here. And there's some settings you can change in here, but the important part is the very instant you hit save, you get a present. And that present always gives you the Essence of Undeath. Now, you can get these by killing undead at a very low rate, I believe, but you need this to get started on the pack by making a decorative grave so that you can pray at it to help you get more XP faster. So I think let's try to put one of these together real fast. Probably this one right here. We need some white marble, which we can make with bone meal, grave dust, which we've been getting from killing undead, and stone. However, this is only the first step. We also need an Ankh of Prey, which requires more grave dust. Thankfully I had 12, some gold, and some sticks, which is not all that expensive. And now we have that as well. Now we just need to place the grave down somewhere. I think I'm just going to put it by my portal here for now. Drop it down like that, and we should be able to right click this with the Ankh to Prey, which got us some more knowledge. Not a whole lot, but you can do this every half hour or so, I think. And every half hour a soul might pop out of this, I believe, which gives us some more options to do. Oh, every 3 hours. It's on cooldown for quite a while. That's interesting. Anyhow, we have some other things we need to do, because we should go get a skeleton and maybe a zombie spawner, so we have undead to bash. We're also going to have to go make a kill room somewhere. That part's going to be a little bit more problematic. Now, in this pack, you can actually safely remove spawners with a Silk Touch pickaxe, which my brass one is. So we can just grab this, and boop, there it goes. One of the things we're going to want to do to set up this mob farm real fast with these spawners is get a mob fan to push them towards us, because we're going to want this to be a manual kill farm, because I'm going to be one that has to kill them, I believe, to get the experience. I think this will work at least, but we will try. Alright, so I'm in a tight little cramped kill box here in the small mine that I've gotten near my base. I've got a fan set up in the back and a redstone light, and this is all turned off. I'm just doing this via normal redstone circuitry here. There's a signal that passes over from the lever over to here to turn on the light, and then comes back here and inverts a redstone torch to turn off the fan. If I flip that switch back over there, it'll turn the light off, turn the fan on, and we should be good to go. I was also going to get fancy and put in some sort of accumulator or something to gather all the drops, and then I realized I don't need to. This is a manual kill box. I'm going to be standing right here, and everything's going to die right here. So I just set up a hopper chain and then a chest to dump it all into. The other neat thing about the Apotheosis spawners is they're upgradable, and you can add things to them to increase the stats on them. Right now, the only thing I can realistically actually do is lower the min spawn time with sugar, because sugar is super cheap. The rest of this I don't really have. I mean, I could add redstone control, but I don't really need it to turn it off. I can just use the light to do that. But there's some interesting things in here, like ignores conditions, which requires the dragon egg, or ignores the players, or turns off the AI, things like that. Alright, so I gave this a quick test. It appears to be working just fine. The main thing I did have to change was adding a second row of hoppers behind the first one, because things are getting bounced back a little bit, so stuff was landing back there. The biggest issue I think I'm going to run into is that equipment drops in here, so this storage is probably definitely not big enough. But I'm also not seeing any grave dust or essences of undead yet. I also don't know if this wither skeleton spawner is working or not, which I mostly put in here just in case I could get skulls out of it early. Okay, yeah, equipment's definitely a problem because we're already jammed up and the grave dust is sitting right here. So I've already gotten one, it just didn't make it over. So I need to do something about how we're going to be storing this stuff, because I'm actually going to want to keep a lot of this stuff to probably disenchant it. I may just want to look into the Industrial Foregoing Enchantment Extractor, although these machines aren't all that cheap to make, because I need to be able to make plastic, which I don't think I can do, and I need these advanced machine frames, which require pink slime, among other things. Corrail does have its own innate way to strip enchantments, but I don't know how quick it's going to be. We're still learning how this works. Well, the good news is I don't think we need to manually kill those mobs. I could set that up as a proper mob farm once I have the materials to do like a mob masher or something, and then we can do that. But the equipment's still going to be a major problem. It's still very, very full very, very quickly in there. So I need to stop and think about that. But now what we need to wait to do is see if we've got a soul in this, and that's going to take a little bit, so I gotta wait around. It is kind of spooky at night though, because if you go into the compendium here, there is quite a bit of information about this pack, although unfortunately a lot of the descriptions aren't massively helpful. But one of the things you can do with the Grave Soul is enchant various items, and this is the list, including magic books on items in your main hand, I believe. I'm going to have to test that out to see if that works. And they do also have the means to disenchant items, which that's what I need to... It looks like there's a book of disenchantment that lets you do this, but it looks like this book uses an awful lot of grave dust to get the items off, so I don't know how viable this actually is. Although it looks like I do have a productive beef eventually that does create grave dust, so Well, this is all very confusing, and I don't feel like I came out of that any more enlightened than I was before. So I took a break while I was trying to figure out how the grave souls work. And this is the part of the episode where I break the video making magic for you, because you probably saw the previous episode's thumbnail and went, hey, Ard, nothing in that episode looked like this room. Well, that's because I made the thumbnail in between making these episodes. Yep, I did this right now. So, moving right along. So, did you know that redstone bees emit redstone pulses? Because I sure didn't. That made my beehive build here kind of a mess because I had doors, and these guys can open doors. So I guess they now get to be walled in forever with the glowing bees permanently. Best friends forever. Alright, so I finally figured out the grave souls, and it turns out I just wasn't patient enough. They just take time to recharge. It'll have this purple glowing orb on top of it when it's ready. I don't know if they're guaranteed or not. It sure seems like they probably are to some extent. I've also seen rumored that there's blue versions of these that count as 2 souls, but they do get consumed on use. So to disenchant something, the first thing you need is a book of disenchantment, which is a bunch of grave dust and then a book and some lapis. You hold that in your offhand. Then you take the item you want to disenchant. In this case, I'm going to do this iron helmet, which has 3 enchants on it. turn, and face the altar. And then right click it, and it strips all the enchantments off and gives you a book for each one of them. Which, given that it only used up one book to make the Book of a Disenchantment, is actually a pretty good deal, given like the enchantment extractor from Industrial Foregoing requires a book for each one you want to take off. So that's actually pretty neat. This is actually pretty decent. I don't know how easy this is to automate it. It may not be at all. I actually can't even think of a way offhand since you have to have something in both hands right now. But to scale this up, what we're going to need is more of these gravestones. The problem is we need more of those essences of death, and I have killed a lot of skeletons and zombies, and I've gotten nothing from them for that. Now that said, my sword has neither looting nor sweeping on it, so I'm not exactly well set up to go farm them. And honestly, I probably should automate it. And I've got a couple options. There's the Mob Masher from Mob Grinding Utils, which is basically the same as it was from Dark Utils and all of the other versions of this in the past, where you take it and you add upgrades to it to get better drops of stuff. I might do that. I can't remember if this requires power or not, but it should work. The problem is, killing all those mobs generates a ton of armor, and I haven't found a good way to dispose of it short of using a diamond upgrade from pipes. And the problem is you have to list every single item you want to keep in the filter. Absolutely do not use diamond or netherite pipes upgrades. I discovered this after I made this episode. We'll go into it more next episode. Sorry, folks. And well, I haven't found the Essence of Undeath yet, so I've got a chest up there to test out the drops, but like until I get the essence, that's not a no-go. There's also Hostile Neural Networks, which is a remake of another one called Deep Mob Learning, which lets you set up a box that simulates killing the mobs and generates loot. And this is actually relatively cheap to make in theory. It doesn't look like that bad, but you also need to make the loot fabricator, which requires, well, netherite, and I haven't found netherite. So I might go look for some netherite real fast to see if I've got this. I also may not have enough power to run this, but it might be worth checking into this. My other problem is that I don't know if it drops the non-vanilla drops when you use that. I will have to test that to find out. So I guess give me a little bit to try to find some netherite, and I guess cross your fingers, because this could take a bit. Alright, so I found 5 pieces. It took a bit. And I made a squeezer because that's the closest I can get for ore multiplication on these right now. It only gives a chance on the second piece, but it's a pretty good chance, and we only need 4 anyways for a single ingot. But at least it's cheap to make. Smashy, smashy. Well, I think I might have found another bug. The actual squeezer I could never get working. I could always get it down to the last stomp, and then nothing ever spit out. Not when I was using the ancient debris, and not when I was using mineral logs to try to use the drying basin right there. So I upgraded to the electric one. Let's hope this works better. Toss that in, watch it stomp it down here. And out comes our netherite scraps, and thankfully we only need 4 of these, because I actually want to hold on to the extras for now. Because there is actually a bee that can make netherite, but you need netherite blocks to pollinate for it. Which I guess we could make these more, but I would rather have as much ore multiplication as I can out of it before I start making this. But there we go, our very first netherite ingot. And you might think this would be a momentous occasion, being 119 and being relatively new to me, but I swear I'm like the last person on the server to get netherite, and it's super easy to get once you have things like the digital miner. So I guess hooray that I finally have netherite. But we're going to need a simulation chamber, a loot fabricator, a deep learner, and a model framework. So we're going to put the loot fabricator and the simulation chamber in our base for now, and we're going to take the model framework and right click a skeleton with it. Then we're going to shift right click the deep learner and put the model in here. And from now, we're gonna go kill some skeletons. I think we could do more than one at a time. We could probably do zombies as well. I probably should go do that real fast. But to give you an idea of how this works, once you have it, you then just start killing mobs. And looking at this, you can see it's a faulty model with 4 of 6 data collected, and we need to get it to basic before we can put it into the simulation chamber. And there we go. That was pretty quick. Now here's the part that could go very, very wrong. I probably don't have enough power for the simulation chamber, but I guess let's find out. Now you'll notice that when we open this up, it says model accuracy 12.08. That's because we need to train it some more. But now that we have it in here, we can train it without having to kill stuff ourselves. But you notice that it says it needs prediction matrices, which are frankly pretty easy to make at this point. So we can just slot those in, and it says it's starting here. It does look like maybe our power can just barely not keep up. I might be able to increase our pipes to fix this, but it looks like we're good to go for at least a while here. but you notice that it used the prediction matrix and then kicked out some generalized overworld prediction, which however is not the skeleton prediction we had wanted. Although now that I'm looking at the skeleton prediction, this looks like it can only do vanilla, so I probably should have looked ahead here, huh? But these also let us make other random bits and bobs, so I don't think this solves my problem, unfortunately. You know what? This is what I get for not doing my research, folks, so I guess I gotta go keep killing stuff manually or create an actual manual one. But I learned a lot today, and this is actually a pretty neat mod and still has some actually solid uses, because we can plug in all sorts of other monster models to get some basic loot out of them. Because, like, why farm shulkers when we can just toss them into here and get it this way? Seems like it still has some pretty good uses overall, eh? Anyhow, I think that's where I'm going to call it for today, folks. We didn't make it as far as I would have liked, but this is actually still from really good progress, and we learned a lot today. So if you found this episode interesting and entertaining, please consider like or subscribe if you're new. As always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.